Well, it's 7 o'clock and I see we're on the screen. So everybody that can call in on Zoom has that ability to see our lovely faces here. Like to call the meeting to order and entertain a motion to approve the agenda. All in favor say aye. Aye. Agenda approved. Minutes of January 12th, 2021. Everybody got a copy of it? Entertain a motion to approve. All in favor say aye. Aye. Minutes approved. Thank you. Public comment. Anybody here to speak? Is that specific or in general?
That would be general. If someone has something to say regarding a public hearing, then they speak for anything.
Okay. Anybody ready to make a public comment not related to the specific conditional use permit that we're talking about tonight? If not, then we go to our new business. I would like to have a motion to open the public hearing.
I move to open the public hearing.
Oh.
If I could remind you to put your microphone on. If the gray thing is on.
No,
then that's the thing that's power.
that's power.
When you push that button, you know how it turns red on the microphone?
Yes, okay. Would you like me to do it over? I move
Okay.
we opened the public hearing.
Public hearing.
I'll second it.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
We're in our public hearing. Conditional use permit 21-01. And it's a request of Storage Depot LLC, John Turchin, for a conditional use permit to operate an outdoor storage facility at 132 Crossroad Drive in Mills River. All those that are here to present evidence need to be sworn in by our clerk. And that's our town manager and the applicant and anybody else that wants to speak.
For now, recognize one person, and that could be Daniel.
Okay.
And then maybe if you move on to the applicant, and then there is an opportunity for people to speak further down.
Okay. So you don't want to swear in both the applicant and
Oh,
manager?
I'm sorry. Bert, I'm having trouble hearing you the time.
Uh-oh.
Okay,
Here we go.
There is a button on the side of your microphone to turn the volume up.
Can you
This
hear me?
thing Right here?
Oh, I see it.
Okay. Thank
This
you.
way?
Yeah, during the meetings, different people do different, and sometimes I can't hear someone.
Sorry. The town manager and the applicant both
Yes,
being sworn in right now.
yes, please.
So if the applicant, the representative of the applicant could walk to the front there.
Whoever is going to speak, just stand in front of your seat. And if you think you're going to say anything, and I know you're adjacent property owners, are you planning to make some type of comment or evidence, or you just wanted to listen? I'm listening. Okay. All right. If we could get your name, please.
John Turchin?
Turchin, Turchin.
Yes.
And your name, sir?
John Rim.
Rim.
R-H-E-M.
R-H-E. And Daniel. Okay, because of COVID, we're going to do this a little differently. I'm going to hold the Bible. I'm going to ask you to just raise your right hand. And I will ask you, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Then we recognize our town manager, Mr. Cobb, to present the case and make recommendations.
Oh, did it die? Some of these batteries, I had one die already tonight.
There we go.
That's the problem. Oh,
You can only have, that's the fourth one. Yeah, we can only have 4 on at a time. Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before you this evening is a request for conditional use permit 21-01, request of the Storage Depot North Carolina LLC. Owner is John Turchin for a conditional use permit to operate an outdoor storage facility as part of their indoor storage facility at 132 Crossroad Drive in Mills River. This hearing was properly advertised. The property was posted. The advertisement ran in the newspaper, and the adjoining neighbors were notified of this evening's hearing. In terms of background, this application came into the town on January 6th, and it is specifically for fencing in basically a parking area in front of the Storage Depot's main facility, which is the old Food Line building, if you're not familiar with the exact location. The indoor storage is permissible by right. Outdoor storage is not permissible by right within this district. However, in the zoning code of the town of Mills River, section 154.057B1, the board is granted the authority to issue conditional use permits that are, quote, commercial uses not otherwise named herein, which come within the spirit and intent of this district. Of course, subject to the same standards of any other conditional use permit. So we have, within the ordinance, there are a number of specific uses allowed with a conditional use permit. And then this one essentially allows the board to consider any use it considers to be within the spirit and intent of the district in which the request is located within. So that's where this application falls under. The request is for the enclosing of a portion of the parking lot with fencing to be secure for the parking of vehicles or other RVs, things of that nature that might want to be stored there. The site plan's attached within your packet. I can explain a little bit better. If you're looking at that in your packet, it's attachment B. The kind of grayed area on the site plan is what they're proposing to fence in. This does leave sufficient parking for the existing uses, both the storage facility as well as CVS that are already on site. So this is not going to put those into non-compliance. The standards for issuing a conditional use permit is number one, the use as proposed will not adversely affect the health or safety of persons residing or working in the neighborhood of the proposed use, and will not be detrimental to the public welfare or injurious to the property or public improvements in the neighborhood. And then the board may also attach conditions to this permit as it sees fit to make sure that the intent of the spirit and chapter of the spirit and intent of the chapter is achieved. So with that, I'm going to turn it back to you, Mr. Chairman. That's all I have for a summary.
Okay. We would like to recognize the applicant to agree or object to the exhibits that so far have been presented by the town manager. We will follow up probably later with questions and more of a discussion, but thank you. Um, next, we can address questions to our town manager as board members.
I have one question. There is a property near there, another storage facility that has a fence around their stuff. Is that in the city limits?
You're referring to the one on 280 just south of this site?
Yes.
Yes, it is in town limits. If I remember correctly, that was built before the town incorporated.
Is the other question. The property owned includes obviously the parking area. That's owned by,
Yes, I'm sorry, that's owned by the applicant.
if the applicant would build a storage facility, could he do that on that property? An extended storage facility. So right now we got the old food line. Is he allowed within the normal rules and regs of the town to increase the size of that building?
Let me just double check that real quick. Yes, subject to any conditions that would be present for new development. So setbacks, ample parking, things of that nature. This was permitted, what we are referring to as a storage center interior to the building is technically defined as wholesale and warehouse establishments, except for the storage of uncured hides, explosive oil products, gasoline, or harmful or dangerous chemicals. So yes, it could. Yeah. Okay. Is that any better? What about now? Is that any better? Turn your microphones up on your. I know. If you look on the side of your microphone. Yeah, that's the word.
Have it on?
It'll broadcast my voice.
You got a wheel on the left and the right.
Is that any better? Is that any better? Okay.
I think it'd be better if you could take your mask off.
Well, I don't want to get COVID-19.
Well, ain't no COVID-19 in here.
Oh, that's just a lie.
Richard, we can't lose him.
So yes, the building, as long as any expansion would meet the applicable standards for any other zoning development, like setbacks, parking, architectural standards, it could be expanded.
Okay, let me expand that question then a little bit more. What would be the setback from the property line if the building would be expanded?
So for dimensional requirements in the general business district, the front setback from a major street is 50 feet. All of the streets are 40 feet. The minimum rear yard setback is 30 feet. And the minimum side yard setback for every principal building is 15 feet.
what would be the minimum required number of parking spaces for a building that size? Is that related to the total number of square feet?
Give me a minute to track that down for you. So for that same category of use, the wholesale and industrial uses, it's one space for each 2 employees at maximum employment on a single shift, plus 1 space for each company vehicle operating from the premises.
Okay, so that's very limited
Mhm.
parking spaces that are required, because I assume in a storage facility, there's not a lot of employees.
I would assume as well.
Okay. What is the town's requirement for an expansion of the building in the front, this natural material? What's the rule on that?
Yes, so the architectural standards require on the front of the building that 75% of the materials are accepted materials, which are things like stone, brick, stone, fake stone that looks real, wood looking materials, things of that nature.
Okay. All right. So aluminum or steel is not considered a natural material.
That's right.
Next, are there any other questions for the town manager?
Yeah. I have a question about fencing. I'm not so concerned at the moment about material of the fencing, but is there a minimum or maximum of the height of the fence?
There's not.
It could go to 12 feet
Mm-hmm.
or it could go down to 4 feet.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Has anybody reached out to you over this from the community?
I have received a couple of emails with concerns about the application. They asked that I not use their names, but what I told them is that I would let you all know that we have received some feedback in opposition to the request.
Is there any setback requirements for fencing?
No. That applies to structures or buildings.
So the fencing could go right up to the street line?
It could go up to their property line. And if that's the street, then yes, it could go up to the street.
And with the fencing, there's no setback and there's no buffering requirements from the town for landscaping or whatever.
No, a fence can be used in conjunction with landscaping for buffering purposes, but a fence in and of itself does not have to be buffered from the neighbors.
Okay.
I don't even know how to form my question. It has been my experience with other properties that we've had questions come up like this, that there has been some very specific requirements of green stuff, whether it be trees or bushes or marigolds in pots. And you're saying that this particular zoning and this particular request has no green things attached to its requirements? Yeah, but I'm just wondering, you know, if the zoning has done it, we don't need to redo it.
I'm going to confirm
Okay,
a section of the chapter, the zoning ordinance. Give me one moment.
As Daniel is looking, I'm sure that this original building has been there a lot longer than our zoning regulations,
yeah.
correct? Sue, you probably know better.
Richard, will you turn off the microphone?
Is mine not on?
Just like the grayish button on the.
Yeah.
As I recall, that Food Line building was here long before the town incorporated. In fact, I'm sure of it because I stood out in front and collected signatures for the incorporation in front of Food Line.
All right. We know that the building has been there a long time.
Um, Again, I didn't see anything in the request about numbers of vehicles or to a max, and then if it's different vehicles, there's going to be different sizes, like an RV could be equal to 2 pickup trucks.
I think if you, but we can ask that question to the applicant later on. Let's give our town manager a chance to
Catch his breath.
find the answer to our question.
Part of your question about parking spaces, the applicant has proposed 42 spaces within the fencing. I'll defer to him at the appropriate time to go over the details of that, but that's
Okay.
that's in the application.
Thank you.
Okay, so with regards to parking areas, fencing, landscaping, if the parking area is expanded by 30,000 square feet or more, then it would need to comply with the landscaping specifications in the ordinance. This is not an expansion of the parking lot, it's simply repurposing an existing space. So there's no additional requirements that they would have to retrofit the site, so to speak. But again, this board does have a condition-making authority, and if there's concerns about the type of fence or look, it seems reasonable that you could ask them to do some additional landscaping.
Thank you. Any other questions at this time for our town manager?
Do we know of any residential homes that are in line of sight to this? I'm trying to think of that area, and I can't think of a home that directly looks at this property. Do we have a Google map or something to look at, or?
Yeah, give me 1 second.
Mhm.
So I suppose the folks up here on Lookout Lane, Parsonage Drive, and Parsonage Drive Extension, depending upon the orientation of their homes, might be able to see it, but I'm not familiar enough with those neighborhoods to speak definitively on that question.
I don't know that they can. That's pretty
It's pretty tree dense in
and
there.
hilly in there. I don't know if they have a very clear view of it. But thank you. That helps a lot.
You're welcome.
Okay, any other questions for the town manager at this time? If not, then is there any of our board members that has personal knowledge on which they may rely that is not in the record? If so,
No,
speak up. If not, then we can put that aside. Thank you. Then we would like to give our applicants an opportunity to present their argument evidence for this application. And if you can step up to the podium and speak into the microphone and start with.
I can speak loudly through the mask if needed, of course. Mr. Chairman, board members, staff, and guests, my name is John Rim. I'm the general manager of the Storage Depot NC. We've proposed a plan here in front of you tonight based upon a need in the community. We opened our interior self-storage facility mid to late December 2020. Doing good business, have received lots of inquiries, but the overwhelming majority of inquiries come from a need for outdoor parking space, secure outdoor parking space for RVs, outdoor cars, things of that nature that the proposed plan would provide. As you've all discussed tonight and your questions have answered, we, I believe, fulfill the needs of the zoning requirements. Fencing in a portion of the parking lot will benefit the community. Right now, as the parking lot exists today, as you may have mentioned in high school, It is a gathering spot after hours in the evenings. We see a lot of semi trucks and trailers that park overnight and through the weekend. But we also see good in the parking lot. Brevard Academy uses our parking lot as a bus stop. So parents meet in the parking lot and the bus comes by mornings and evenings and picks up students. So I believe we've incorporated the good into our site plan. I've spoken with the headmaster at the academy to incorporate their needs into the plan, but also to eliminate vagrancy and unauthorized activity that does tend to happen after hours. Again, we've received 10 to 15 inquiries in the last month of needs of people in the community that would like to park their RV or their camper or things outside in a secure space. So we've presented this plan to you to consider in hopes of approval. And myself and Mr. Turchin are happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Yeah, you could stay up there.
Of course.
Thank you. And if you can stay by the podium, by the microphone, so we can point some questions at you. Anybody?
Oops, yeah, I'm on. Had you given any thought to the height of the fence?
Yes, ma'am. We would like to stay in visual conformity of the surrounding properties. First Citizens Bank, immediately across Crossroad Drive from us, has, I believe, a 5 foot to 6 foot aluminum picket style fence painted black. We would like to stay in visual conformity with the property across the street.
So do I hear you say you're looking to do a, let's call it a faux picket fence, or were you looking to do a solid fence?
Not a solid fence, a picket style aluminum fence. And I'm happy to show you a picture of the property across the street.
Well, I know the kind of
First
fence they
Citizens.
have.
Yes, ma'am. If you go to, sorry to interrupt you, madam. If you go to the Google Street View, that's it right there. Just in visual conformity of the property across the street. The only condition is a portion of our fence would be gated to provide secure access to our tenants.
Any other questions?
Yeah, what size RVs and stuff do you plan on storing in there? And what kind of standards are you going to have as far as what you allow people to store in there? Are you going to allow them to store broken, rough looking vehicles? I mean, what's your plans for that?
Sure. Thank you for your question. I believe our price point, just by charging a certain amount per month, will eliminate the, I guess, the applicable reference of dilapidated vehicles. Nobody's going to pay to store a broken down vehicle, but we do have different size spaces. If you reference your plan, there are spaces on the north side of the fenced in lot that are for standard vehicles. So imagine any old car or airport storage long-term, or somebody that needs to store a normal size vehicle. In the middle, there are 2 rows of parking spaces that are 45 feet deep each. So that's your larger motorhome, larger RV type spaces. And then on the south end of the fence line, there are spaces that are also 45 feet deep there that are 10. There's 10 spaces there, but it would also be campers, RVs, things of that nature.
And what's the fence height going to be?
It would be in visual conformity with First Citizens across the street. I don't have an exact height, but it would be approximately 5 to 6 feet.
Okay, so I could jump across that. That's not very secure. So I was curious to how high y'all are thinking about making it.
If you're brave enough to jump across the spike picket fence, you're good.
Thank you.
Of course. Yes, ma'am.
Are you going to have 24-hour access for the vehicle owners?
Thank you for your question. It will be gated access, so you would have to have a 4-digit PIN to gain access through the gate, but it would, I believe, be 24-hour access.
So that means also probably then you're going to have a certain amount of security lighting.
Yes, ma'am. The parking lot as it exists today has adequate lighting overhead from the existing food line when it was operable.
Did that stay on 24 hours?
I
Or
believe,
let's say from 7 PM to 7 AM?
I believe that comes on at dusk and then stays on until approximately midnight. Mr. Turchin, you may be able to speak to that. Currently it goes off at about midnight. Goes on at sundown, goes off at midnight.
Where would the access gates be?
Thank you for the question. If you reference your plan there,
Mm-hmm.
on the south end,
Mm-hmm.
on the right-hand side, you see a 20-foot reference marker.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That is the entrance gate in and out of the fenced-in parking area.
So it's only one in and one out.
Yes, ma'am.
So people would access from whatever that street's called, directly
Crossroad Drive. Yes, sir.
Crossroad Drive. Okay. You mentioned that it would really help the community because you would eliminate a gathering space, which, that makes sense. But how do you control that gray strip on the left and in front of the building? Because now you're actually creating a hiding space for people totally out of sight.
To answer your question, so by way of picket fence, it's not a solid fence. You can see through it. We do have security inside, or security cameras inside and outside of the building that we as the property owners can surveil. We've also had a really good working relationship so far with the sheriff's office. They patrol the lot as it is. They do a very good job of that. As far as a hiding space per se, I personally don't think that would be an issue, but I'd be open to comment to how we could curb that if you believe that would be an issue.
Well, on the left-hand side again, outside of the fence, you have an area marked for rental truck parking
Along Crossroad Drive on that south end of the fence there.
along, no, not along the fence running north. Is that north?
That would be,
Yeah,
you're reading Plan North. Yes,
Yeah.
of course. So that would be in the hopes of operating a good self-storage facility. We would have U-Haul or another type of rental truck of parking available where tenants could rent those trucks. There's 4 spaces there, I believe, that we could park trucks there parallel that customers could come in and use those type trucks.
And I noticed you also show some at the rear, absolute rear of the building.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, so there is ample parking in the back of the building there, which is also under video surveillance as it is now, that we could park some additional trucks for customers.
That area behind the building would not be fenced.
No, sir.
Okay. What kind of landscaping are you planning? I see the 4 islands on the south side of the fenced-in area. Is there something proposed there?
Again, we would like to keep in visual conformity with the other properties adjacent to us. They have islands, as you referenced. We'd like to plant trees there just to soften the area. So it's not just a hard fence line with trees and other vegetation.
But the fence line is actually on the property line. No? Is it set back? How much?
I'm sorry, I don't know the exact amount, but Mr. Cobb, maybe you could reference that there is a setback there.
I was thinking the red line around the pale gray spot is the fence line. Am I wrong?
You are correct. The red line that you're referencing in your plan is the proposed fence line.
Okay.
Okay, if that's the setback, that's very little. No, but if it's 2 feet or 3 feet. All right. Okay, let me just summarize more for myself, but so the access to the main building is from the corridor that runs around this new fenced-in area. The access for the fenced-in area is not from the same corridor, but is actually directly from a public road.
Yes, sir. From a main drive, Crossroad Drive.
Crossroads Drive is actually owned by us. It's a private street, but we have to maintain it. And it's actually owned by a private public street.
Who? Okay,
So it would appear that the property line is technically across where the roadway is on the other side, would be y'all's property line, if y'all own the street.
Technically, I'm sure that would be correct. Yes, sir.
I believe that's I would love to donate it, make it a public street. Maintain it.
yeah, that'd be fun.
The fence is about 2 feet off the property line according to this drawing.
Okay, that's a little confusing to me then, because if the road is for you to maintain, the property line doesn't have to conform that right, yeah, because you can join in the cost of maintaining a road but not own that property. Yeah. Any other questions? Ms. Wall.
I don't think I so much have a question as just the, you keep referencing, you want to keep everything looking like the bank. And you're a storage facility, and frankly, you're not going to look like the bank in no way, shape, or form. Frankly, I'd much rather look at the bank than what you're proposing. And I don't know how you could have any kind of a security fence that's no higher than what you're proposing. I think if were I looking for a place to put my $100,000 or $150,000 motorhome, I would want something that a frog couldn't jump over. And I would, were I a property owner somewhere in that vicinity, I would want it to be blocked from ready view. That's just my feeling. So we might have to think about that on the conditions.
Am I able to respond?
Yes, of course.
I appreciate your concern, of course, because the biggest fear is, as one of the other board members expressed concern for, is dilapidated, rundown vehicles. Mr. Cobb, if you're able to, are you able to pull back up a street view of our of the parking lot there? If you just turn right around there and just run up the street just a little bit, there you go. This, I believe, Google Street View was snapped in 2019. What we see happening in the lot, this was in 2019. What we see happening today is people use our lot for this purpose without request from the owner. I mean, there it is right there. If you turn back the other way, there's an RV. What our goal is to control the parking lot a little more, to provide better efficiency in the parking lot, and to eliminate vagrancy, unauthorized activity, late night gatherings, donuts in the parking lot. We just want to be a better service for the community, but in a visual conforming way.
Was the property posted?
Could you expand on your question?
Was the property posted no parking?
Yes, I believe
it?
so. If we could zoom in a little more, there's probably some no trespassing signs that the previous property owner had. There was a large,
I don't see it right now, but there's at either end of the building.
Yeah.
I believe I see it there.
Yeah.
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 I believe those say no trespassing, no,
Loiter.
to that effect. Yes, ma'am.
I think I would assume it would be for the building and certainly not the parking lot, but that's just me. Because I use that lot a lot.
Yes, ma'am. Of course.
Any other questions for the applicant at this time? Nope. Well, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Board members.
I would like to recognize any other person, and I know we have two people here that joined us for this meeting, that would like to give their opinion about this application, either in favor, against, or give other information that we need to have. Okay. Would you mind to step up to the microphone and
Tell me who you are.
sorry.
Robert Moody?
Push the green button.
I,
There we go.
Robert Moody, and I think that my wife and I would agree, in favor of it.
Do you live near there?
We own the trailer park across the street from the,
Oh, the one that kind of.
yeah, you get on one old car wash, where the old car wash.
Yeah.
280, I think it is.
Good.
No, it's 191.
Okay. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, we can recognize any other person that wishes to comment, but I don't think we have anybody else. Preliminary discussion with input from any person that you would want to consider, and I invite them. That's for us. Our discussion. Yes, sir.
I would agree with the applicant that there is a need for this type of service. I have, for example, I have an RV, and it is hard to find a place to store RVs in this area. It's not inconsistent with the property across the street that has a fence that's not going to be, that's not near as visually aesthetic as what they're proposing to put in. So as of right now, I'm in support of it. Like I said, I believe there is a need for it.
Any other input from board members? And you have to push the button.
The only thing I'd like to add is I understand that Mr. Cobb received an email about this, but they didn't show up to oppose it, and that should carry some weight.
Well, they couldn't show up because we're full.
Or Google Meet, whatever we're using right now.
Yes, we did offer them the option to Zoom in if they wanted to, but didn't take us up on it.
Okay. Any other comments for our discussion?
My main comment, and of course we can do it should we decide to do the conditional usage, we can nail in things like height of fence and so on. But I would like to see it, while not lushly landscaped, because you're going to have things that don't need to be talked to and fussed over, but I'd like to see more than what is there right now, or even more than what was showing around the bank property, just to soften it some. It can easily be done with trees, or there's a lot of very forgiving trees and bushes.
I happen to agree with that.
I think we need to make the best of what is there. What is there isn't an asset to the community. And I'd rather see, in a way, a nicely fenced and landscaped storage area is such a judgmental term, but I can't think of a better one. I'd rather see that than another building come in there, another warehouse or something, quite frankly, and it's still going to be a little more open property.
No comment.
I agree that I think if we approve this, I would propose to put a condition in that there's going to be more than just a couple islands and some trees. I think the fence need to be set back from the road, crossroads, just like the picture showed of for Citizens. I mean, that fence is not exactly at the road. And I think it's very important that we try to not downgrade the surrounding by just having a fence with lots of vehicles behind it, visible to everybody all the time.
Which they're going to be.
Yeah.
May I address the landscaping issue you're talking about?
Yes, sir. If you come up to the podium,
Hi, I'm John Turchin.
you have to push the button.
Good evening, I'm John Turchin. I'm the owner of the property. The intent is, I don't know if you've seen the building lately, but we've improved the building visually, painted signage. The intent of the fence right now is to use those existing islands that are there, put the fence right on the edge of them, leaving a complete landscape buffer between this existing street and that. And we're proposing to put large trees in those, each one of those islands, and some ground cover. So it's not, we're not leaving it like it is. If we don't do this, it, you know, it is what it is out there right now, and it's not attractive. So I have a great pride in what I do and the things that I do. And, you know, from a landscape point of view, we're going to landscape it substantially and make it a beautiful property as best as we can for an old Food Line building, an old brick building. I think it looks a lot better now. You know, it was years of neglect what was there. I mean, the parking lot will get resurfaced. It will be maintained. You know, we're not a gravel storage facility with a chain link fence like what's down the street. I just wanted to, you know, as far as where this fence is going to go, there's landscape buffers that are there. We intend to use those to landscape them properly and put the fence right on the interior edge of that. If we move the fence inside parking spaces, then what's going to happen between those parking spaces and that buffer? There's going to be abandoned cars and things being put there. And that's what goes on now.
Well, right now, you have the little landscape islands projecting into Crossroad Drive, so to speak.
Yes.
And you have, one of them allows the entranceway into the secured parking, but then you also have several just paved slots. Is there a way that you could run your landscaping all the way? Do you follow what I'm saying?
Yeah, that wasn't the intent. Where our intent was to use the existing landscape buffers with the curbs and what's there, landscape them.
But then you're going to have outside parking places.
No, there's not going to be outside parking. I mean, if somebody could park there, okay.
You're not
Our,
going to rent them out. but-
no, we're not going to rent them out.
Yeah,
And
but it's
people,
gonna-
the only thing that would get parked there if somebody abandons a car, and we will have it towed away.
Other question, Mr. Turchin, when you purchased this property, that there was no intent to do this?
We had thought about it, but the demand came after we opened up and we started getting calls for outdoor storage. Being in the storage business, we get numerous calls on a regular basis for this service, for this product.
Okay. Thank you.
Me, got a question. What's gonna be in the old Food Line building?
It's storage right now. It's a self-storage facility.
It's
Air conditioned, heated, climate controlled storage.
It is storage in there.
Yeah, it's operating today.
Mhm. Yeah, last time I was up there, it was just a brick building. This has been several weeks ago.
Okay. Thank you, Mr.
Okay,
Turchin.
thank you very much.
Any more discussion? Go ahead.
A suggestion. I'm assuming we're getting ready for motions to be made. We probably need to go ahead and discuss what extras we would like to see to put into a motion, meaning the landscaping, fence height, anything that y'all are thinking as far as that goes.
Yes, I think that's very good. I don't know if we have to, we can do that right now. I mean, it's in our preliminary discussion as we want to. I personally have a problem with the access to the area from the road directly and not through the back or the side or however. I don't know how you would do it otherwise. Because you can just imagine what happens on that crossroads when you try to pull your $150,000 28-foot trailer in there. It's going to block the road.
I don't go
because
camping with you
you
guys.
have to get through the fence.
I want to go camping with you guys.
Well, $36 tent, whatever. No, but I don't like the direct access to that parking area. I appreciate Mr. Turchin saying already that he wants to put some trees in, but I would like to have something that actually buffers the view from the surrounding area for this commercial storage facility. It's not a parking lot anymore. I'm still concerned about the, I know the reason to have rental trucks on the side there, and obviously, it's his property, so he can do with it what he wants, and I want to respect that. But to have that whatever it is, 27 plus 18, 15 feet, 40 feet from between the building and the new fence, that corridor, I'm concerned about that. What's going to happen there when the lights turn off?
With the gate entrance, I think it almost has to be there, does, because you wouldn't be able to make it be a hard turn for campers and otherwise if it wasn't there.
Well, but you could make an recessed gate in such a way that you can actually pull up to the gate. The gate will not open automatically. You have to stand there and get out and do things. Yes, sir.
Remember there's limited number of parking spaces, and people store things. They don't go in and out every day. They store it, they leave it there for extended period of time. It's not, where they're storing it overnight. It's not Amazon where they're keeping all their trucks. They approached us, Amazon, wanting to release all of our parking spaces to park all their vehicles. And we did not want that. We thought there would be too much traffic, too much of a burden. These vehicles are bigger. They are valuable. People store them. They want them secure. They want them in a safe place. There's not a lot of traffic coming in. I mean, daily we deal with semis coming in there, parking, fixing their trucks, tow trucks bringing their semis in there, parking it, repairing it in our parking lot. That's what we're dealing with currently. I think this will stop all of that happening here because it will be controlled. The parking that's in the front is designed to better suit the CVS customers coming in all the way across the front and make it more easily accessible for CVS and the customers coming in there. There was a lot of thought put in here with our land planner, and we looked at every which way the entrance should be put in here and the most friendly way to get the vehicles. But there's not a lineup of these vehicles coming in on any regular basis, nor in the storage. People come put their things in storage and they leave it there for a long period of time. So there's not a lot of traffic, and we have an abundance more parking for CVS, and also trying to help the school. And the school bus would come in there, and that's where they have been. And we thought about that corridor over there where they would drop off the kids and the parents could pick them up as well, and which is currently going on in that same spot.
What, up by the building?
No, they go in that corridor, that northern corridor there, where the truck parking is. That's where the school buses drop
Yeah,
off.
well, that's what I
Yeah.
meant,
If there's not a semi parked in there.
along here.
Yes, ma'am. Along the south end of the fence line, the school bus
Mhm.
pulls in there on Crossroad Drive. Between us and the Hardy Hospital there, medical center. They pull in
Yeah.
there. And, and they have a chain link fence at Party there. It's not landscaped. That we end up sending our weed eaters over there to cut and maintain the fence. Because it was a neglected property and we're trying to improve it.
Going back to what Mr. Lemke was saying about the larger vehicles entering the storage area, do you, give or take, how wide is that part of Crossroad Drive? Like right where your 20-foot entrance is to where the other vacant property is? How
That's
much?
now became a O'Reilly's
Is that a
Auto
two-
Parts. It's a full 2-lane.
It is a full
Yeah,
two-lane?
it's a full
Mhm.
2-lane.
Yes. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I've got two more points. When we're talking about this, as far as this board approving this conditional permit, we have two things we have to look at as far as, will it not adversely affect the health and safety of persons residing, working in the neighborhood, which I don't see how it does. And will it be detrimental to public welfare, injurious to property or public improvements in the neighborhood? And I don't see that there. And my question is, it says the Board of Adjustment may designate conditions, and I would think it would just stop there, but then it says in its opinions. So it's our opinion, but does it actually get enforced if we say it? Okay. So I think I'm ready to make a motion if you're ready to consider that.
Well,
If I may, just quickly before moving to motions, a suggested condition to this might be that it comply with the existing landscape standards for parking areas and buffer requirements. The buffer requirement would be, give me 1 second, I just bookmarked it. No, I can't find it. Buffer requirements for properties when there is a commercial strip, or excuse me, a commercial use that is not separated by a road or anything like that. A buffer strip consists of planted strip of at least 10 feet in width composed of evergreen trees spread not more than 20 feet. And then the landscaping interior planting requirements are basically that they would landscape the islands that are shown in the image on the screen according to the standards in the code, which includes curbing, which they already have, shrubs. I believe they're planning on planting trees, so that should take care of the shade tree requirement. Yeah, and then 6 shrubs for every 10 parking spaces.
Where would the 6 shrubs go?
Well, they may have to add some parking or some islands to meet that standard.
Internal islands.
Mhm. Just a suggestion. We already have standards for it, unless you're comfortable just, creating whatever landscaping design you.
Yes, but if
Feels
I
appropriate.
understood to Mr. Turchin correctly, he's proposing utilizing the existing 4 islands that are there, which are pretty decent size islands.
Mhm.
It's not like it's a little 10-inch flower pot.
Mhm.
But then there was no discussion or suggestions or offering of, and I can see why, because you're going to have cars bumping into them. You're saying he has to have internal
I'm not saying he
plan.
has to.
Well, the zoning is suggesting that if you're saying he has to have bushes for every 10 parking places,
Mhm.
they have to go somewhere.
Right.
we're still in discussion phase. I have
Yes.
a question for the town manager. Is it an option to ask the applicant to come with a different proposal that has more buffering
More specifics?
specifics in there and give him the, or is that just delaying things unnecessary? What I'm thinking about is saying you want a 10-foot green buffer at least on the south side,
Mhm.
and maybe also on the east side. But I don't know if that's makes it more complicated.
Let me confer with the clerk of the year. So if they wanted to do that, would we just continue this hearing in a later date? How would that work?
Yes, they would recess the hearing and then after they get out of hearing, they recess the meeting.
Mhm,
And to a specific date and time.
mhm.
And it sounds like they're asking for a landscape proposal to be brought back to them before they make a decision.
Okay. So yes, you can do that. It would just be a matter of figuring out when the board could get back together, when they could have a landscaping plan put together.
But there's no additional expense beside making the landscaping plan. He doesn't have to apply again
Oh,
for
no. Mhm.
anything. Okay.
No, but everything would basically just pause until that plan is submitted, and then you continue the conversation.
Well, that's up for discussion, and I'm not proposing that right now, but I'm thinking about it.
Well, it's a fine line with conditional usage because we need to be fair to the applicant, but we need to be fair to the town and the people that live here. And more people see this one or will see this one than they do the one down the road a tad. Is my primary problem.
I actually completely disagree with that. I think this is actually, I mean, when you're going down 280, you have to really look to your left to see this, where the other one's right on the side of the highway. There's a lot of green space in front of it. I think we have to be reasonable.
Oh,
I
absolutely.
believe that the property owner is given us or has given us the what I believe is his good faith intention to landscape. If we asked him to add 10-foot buffer on that roadside on the south, that's what I'm hearing. So what y'all are, if I'm hearing you right, between the islands, you're wanting a green space?
Or on the north side of those islands to get really a green strip.
You
And
mean
then that's not
in-
consistent with the other properties around there. I mean, we have the garage down the corner. The bank has grass. The gas station has grass with a few bushes. Triangle Stop has nothing.
Mills River Restaurant doesn't have much.
Missouri Restaurant doesn't have anything, and they're a lot more in view as far as a property than this is.
There's a lot of pre-existing
Situations.
And I agree, and this is a pre-existing, this is how he got the property. I mean, so for us to ask him to do a lot of upgrading on this, I just don't know, it's very reasonable, especially when we're talking about filling in that area. I don't know if that required tearing up concrete, do you put planters in? I don't know what that requires. Again, I think what he's asking for is pretty reasonable, and he's gave us reassurances that he'll put trees and stuff in those planters.
Well, if we're concerned about blocking the view from 280, the auto parts store has already done it in many ways. I'm more thinking about down the side, down by the doctor's office. That's going to be a wide open view. There's not going to be anything there. Let's talk about the fence for a minute. Do we want to say a 5-foot fence? Let's work that into consideration and be fair about it.
Well-
You know, and I'm sure
Well, what's-
everyone would like not to come back.
What is that of our business? What height the fence is? I mean, it's 5 foot or 6 foot.
I agree, that's, the market will decide that. If their fence isn't high enough, they won't have customers. I mean, so I don't know if that's for us to put a restriction on, or I would happen to agree with the chairman on that.
Okay.
The condition we could put on there is that we don't want no
Razor wire.
razor wire on top, or stuff like that. And that again, maybe right now sort of jokingly, but who knows what's necessary a year down the road. A year ago, we didn't know that we would be sitting here with limited attendance either.
And at the moment, Mills River is not a hotbed of crime, however.
Things can change. So I think the height of the fence is up to the owner of the
Applicant, okay.
property. But I think the appearance of the fence, we can put a condition on,
To mimic First Citizens fence.
and height is up to them.
Okay.
What happens if we put a condition and it's not complied with? As far as,
It's a zoning violation at that point, and we would go through the enforcement proceedings accordingly, which can include civil penalties that accrue until they pay it. There's ample opportunity for enforcement up to and including basically closing the business until they comply. But it's very rare.
Also keeping in mind the consideration for the owner, so he knows what we expect of him, not just say we'd like to see a couple trees planted. And everyone needs to know what's going to happen. So if y'all say the market is going to say the height of the fence, that's fine, but I think we do need to be specific. The landscaping seems to me the only thing that we really have somewhat of a say, along with no razor wire on top of the fence.
Those are important considerations, because remember that the conditional use permit runs with the land. So if Mr. Turchin decides that he wants to get out of the storage business one day and sells it to someone,
Yeah,
it's a valid point to have it in writing.
we
what your
need to be
expectations are.
specific, so there's no misunderstandings or real problems later that we gave away something that we didn't intend to, or permitted is a better way to put it, because we're not giving it away.
if we put a condition that the fence has to be consistent with what's at the bank, I believe we can do that, the type of fence. The buffer, I mean, as far as the requirements for the outer buffer, is that what you're talking about? Per city ordinance is what we require?
Currently, yes, if there's a buffer strip is required between conflicting uses like commercial and residential, if there's nothing in between them, like a road, for example.
So what we have to determine is do we want a strip completely across, or the islands, basically? That's what we have to decide, I guess, for a motion, before anything's ever done there.
I would like to also just remind the board that O'Reilly's installed. On their own property, but it will assist with blocking the storage facilities property as well.
I know I'm getting picky, but I'm getting old. The islands that are there existing now, about what are their size? Because the size of the tree is going to depend on how much land it has to go into. Well, I'm looking at the map and it's hard.
25 feet.
By about 10 feet, 12 feet.
Yeah.
So a fairly, not totally mature, but a pretty well along tree could be planted in there. Because the roots can go down and come up and break the pavement.
Okay. So we have in our discussions talked about the fence, which is conform to what is at the across the road neighbor at First Citizens. The height is between 5 and 6 feet, and there's no razor blade stuff on top. We want, I propose that we ask for specific landscaping along crossroads, 10 foot, which is in line with what a normal commercial parking lot would ask for right now. Now, I don't know if that's just grass or actually trees and shrubs. You have that in the definition of landscaping requirements, according to town's landscaping requirements.
I think that makes more sense than rather we say 5 trees and
Yeah, no,
8 rolls of sod
according to
for this zoning.
commercial requirement or requirements for commercial parking.
So there's landscaping requirements and then there's a buffer requirement. The buffer requirement is the perimeter of the property, not interior to the parking area at all. The landscaping standards for parking lots are shade trees and shrubs. And we can't ask them to do anything off-site, but other things that would typically be required are street trees. But again, if they're proposing to do the street tree or the trees in these islands that are shown on the plan, they would essentially comply with that to the greatest extent that they're able to. So it really would come down to adding additional shrubs, or that 10-foot buffer could be along the front of the property as well.
So to make sure I heard you correctly, if they comply with putting trees on the islands, that would meet the shrubbery requirements for a parking lot, shade trees.
That was specifically a reference to the street trees that would typically be required for an access drive. Even though they might own that road in common, we're talking about a specific property for their conditional use permit. If this was a brand new development, we would request that they have street trees throughout the entire access road. But in this particular instance, I would say that they're meeting the street tree requirement to the best that they're able to do, considering the existing conditions on the site.
Any other discussion at this time? Nope. Okay. Then we have that was a preliminary discussion. Now the deliberation of the board, considering all the factors as set out in the ordinance, which basically is the 2 findings that we got to have, 1 and 2, which is spelled out in the application. The use as proposed will not adversely affect the health or safety of persons residing or working in the neighborhood of the proposed use, and 2, will not be detrimental to the public welfare or injurious to property or public improvements in the neighborhood. How do we go about this?
You do 2 motions or 1 motion granting the additional usage with the following conditions.
Can I ask that you address your 2 findings first?
Okay.
In 2 separate motions.
And you got to turn your microphone on.
Yes. Okay.
I make a motion that the use as proposed will not adversely affect the health or safety of persons residing or working in the neighborhood or proposed use.
Second.
Okay, we have 2 seconds, so that's really good. Motions on the floor. Any other Discussion, all in favor of that motion, say aye.
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 Aye. 5 in favor of that motion. And then we need a motion on the second finding.
I move that issuance of the conditional use permit will not be detrimental to, will not be detrimental to public welfare or injurious to property or public improvements in the neighborhood because of the restrictions we will enumerate.
Yeah. Motion's on the floor. Do I get a second?
I second.
All in favor of that motion, say aye.
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 Aye. 5 out of 5 in favor with the conditions. And that's next on our,
Do they go in the form of a motion or simply a shopping list, so to speak?
yeah, we have to agree on what conditions are we going to put in.
If you like, you can vote on the conditional use permit and then vote on a list of conditions. Or you can do one motion for the conditional use permit, including your list of conditions. It's your pleasure.
I prefer to agree on the conditions first, that we have a clear understanding on that. Motion on the conditions.
I move that we place the following conditions on the conditional use permit. First off, that the fence will conform to the fence that is on the bank property, which is a faux wrought iron picket fence, no less than 5 feet.
Can I adjust that? Propose
Absolutely.
to adjust that? A similar appearance of fence as
Okay.
at First Citizens Bank with a height of, do we want to put the height in?
Well, I've heard two people saying two different things. I don't really care because I think they're going to put in as much as they can to protect their property.
Okay, so why don't we just talk about the appearance of the fence and the fact that there, as an addition, maybe that there cannot be any,
No razor wire.
no, whatever term we can use.
Additional security. No barbed wire type security toppings.
Very good. So that's one. Sue, you have that one? Okay.
All right, I'm gonna take a stab at what I wrote down and see if this is what you wanted. The motion is to impose the following condition. A fence to conform to a similar fence in appearance as on the First Citizens property with no barbed wire type security topping.
Mhm.
Did you get that?
Okay.
So that's number
So
one.
that's number one.
Okay.
Number two. Landscaping requirements.
I'll
In my opinion, I believe asking them to put trees on the islands is sufficient. But like I said, that's just my opinion on the matter.
I,
with the fact that the auto parts store has also lined that with trees that when they begin to grow will block that parking lot. And that is the field right there, correct?
mhm. Yeah. The only problem I have with that is those spaces between the islands were access to the original parking lot. They are no longer going to be there for access to the original parking lot. So I think that, and I know it's going to cost something, to extend that strip with the 3 islands from the east to the west, from the corner of the property, and you're looking now the other way around as we have in the drawing, but that actually becomes a landscape strip. If you look at the bank, there is a large landscape strip running between the auto parts store and the bank, as well as there's a, you can see that there's a 10-foot probably continues along crossroads. That is landscaping.
Well, you know, actually, if you look at the property we're discussing tonight, there's only 2 areas between the islands that would have to be modified.
Mhm. Yeah.
Because one would be left for the entrance.
Yes.
So it's not going to be it's going to be money, but it could be
Mhm.
worse. And then it really will conform with the overall everything there.
Are we allowed to hear back from the applicant on this? Because my question is if they can't, if that's not something they're willing to do or can afford to do, then I don't know there's much reason to continue moving forward with this. If they're not willing to make, I can agree with that if that's what y'all want, but I mean, if the property owner can't comply with it, then I don't see.
So that's his decision. But I think we as Board of Adjustment, we have to look at the public welfare and to other property owners in that area. And I think especially with the nature of the commercial storage, it's a commercial, it's a business. This is not a property owner that wants to do something with his house. We hear a lot of other cases. This is a property owner that has the right to do as much as possible with the property, but our conditions will add cost. I agree. But I think what we want to do with the conditions that we add to this permit is to do something that fits the public welfare and the surrounding property owners. They may not all look at it all the time, but I don't want to drive around and say, oh boy.
And I definitely hear what you're saying. I mean, I disagree with what you're saying. I mean, looking at this picture right here, you'd literally lining both sides of the roadway with trees. Well, it might be, but who are we blocking from seeing it? The people that are going to be driving down that road are the ones that are going to be doing business there. The ones from the roadway aren't going to see it. And make the motion as you see. I mean, I'll either vote for it or I won't. I mean, that's just, and that's fine.
Yeah.
I mean, I can agree to disagree on it.
But I would like to make all the conditions as one motion.
But trees have more of an aesthetic than not trees. And people are moving more toward doing more with landscaping. Heck, it's a cheap improvement, frankly. With all the development that's coming in through here, we are losing trees. Asheville's Buncombe County's got a problem. We're having a problem with losing canopy. So, you know, I don't think it can hurt.
Well, my question is, my issue is not having trees on that side. My issue is having them forcing them to build something in the middle and those asphalt places.
It's
to
conditional
plant
use
trees.
permit. This is.
I'm
you
just
know,
giving my opinion on it.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Okay. How do we put that into our conditional motion? Motion for the conditions, excuse me.
The landscape portion of the conditional usage requirements would be trees to be planted in the 4 existing islands along Crossroad Drive, with the addition of the 2 concrete areas that will not be, or asphalt as the case may be, which will not be used for entrance into the lot, to those also to join the other islands to allow more trees to be planted. Did that make sense?
Can I make
You-
a suggestion to simplify that a little?
Sure.
Your requirement is that trees will be placed in the 4 existing islands and well, let me put this another way. A landscape strip
On Crossroad
installed
Drive.
and treed along the Crossroad Drive section of the fencing, leaving an opening for the gate.
Thank you.
Did you get that?
What other
Okay.
conditions?
1 second, Mr. Chairman, just for clarity for everyone's sake, if you look at the site plan on the screen right now, I placed the letters A and B in what I believe to be the openings that you want closed. Is that correct?
Yes.
So I just want to add this to the record that this exhibit has been amended to reflect closing gaps A and B to be filled with landscaping.
Yes.
Okay.
And that would be it. I'm bushes and stuff. I don't care.
According to landscape requirements of the town
Is that a question?
for commercial, we're not going to describe what kind of bushes and what kind of trees. You have already an ordinance in place for landscaping.
We do, but it doesn't apply in this situation. I was simply offering that as if you wanted some ready-made standards, you could reference that. And the standards in this instance would be the street trees and some shrubs around the base of those trees. There are other requirements for interior plantings within parking areas, but given the town does not have non-conforming standards that have to come into compliance with new development.
Yeah.
So from a zoning point of view, if this did not require a special use permit, I would ask these gentlemen to comply with the standards as much as they can, as much as they reasonably can. And I think that what you've suggested that they do is reasonable
Mhm.
if they comply with that. I wouldn't really get into the interior planting at all. And
Okay.
just leave it at that, openings A and B.
All right?
Mhm.
What else do we want to put as conditions?
I don't think we need to get into lighting and CCTV and all that stuff. That's his problem. And he's covered a lot of the questions we asked. I don't see that we have any other I don't have anything else I want. You looked thoughtful. No?
Okay, so Sue, can we basically say the proposed conditions as we have put in the minutes? Can we vote on those?
You can. I'd be more comfortable reading them for you one more time.
Okay.
Why
And
don't
then
you
if
do
you
that?
agree to them, then you can make your motion as you've done.
Go
Okay,
right
let's see
ahead.
if I can read my notes.
Yep.
And first, let me clarify. It started with Linda saying she was making a motion. So I'm assuming this was really not a motion because of all of the discussion. This is just creating a list.
A list of the conditional requirements.
Right, and then there will be a motion on them. Okay. So, a condition that a fence will conform to a similar fence in appearance as on the First Citizens property with no barbed wire type security topping. You agree with that? Okay. The other one would be trees in a 10-foot strip to extend east to west along Crossroad Drive, leaving an area for a gated entrance and closing 2 entrances to the parking lot. But I'd heard a lot of bushes, but this is just trees. All right. That's
right.
what I have. If you
My-
agree with those.
Does it, because we say trees in the 2 areas, does that preclude us having to say removing the asphalt to plant the trees?
We want it. Do we have to specify that, or do we just say a continuous strip of landscaping according the town recommendations?
You can specify that it has to be an extension of those islands, as opposed to, and sometimes in downtown settings, you'll see big pots. People
Yeah.
Put trees in pots.
That's what I'm thinking
And
of.
if that's okay with the board, then that's what you should say.
No.
But if you prefer it be a continuous strip of green, then you should specify that.
A continuous strip of green to cover the
Should we-
3 existing islands. So filling in opening A and B, and the planting according the town's standards for commercial parking areas.
With regards to, and I would further, this is my suggestion is to specify that specifically with regards to the specimens that are planted, meaning that they have to meet certain height requirements and things of that nature. Because that's really the only requirement. We're just going to keep it simple.
Mhm. Okay, Sue, sorry.
Hang on. All right, I'm not sure if I've got all this, but I've taken what I already had and made some adjustments. Trees to be planted in a 10-foot strip, continuous and green, to extend along the east to west along the Crossroad Drive, leaving the area for the gated entrance and closing 2 entrances to the parking lot, and the trees to conform with the town's landscape ordinance as to type and size for commercial properties.
I'm good with that.
Okay, so that's the motion as you made for the
in
conditions.
grant,
Because she said she was making a motion, and then there was all this
I can
discussion.
withdraw my
I would
statement.
say, we'll withdraw this motion, and now you make a motion now that you're settled on it.
Go right ahead.
Am I making a motion simply on the conditions, or is this,
On the conditions.
Sue, when we made the motions before for items 1 and 2, was that just stating that they didn't do it, or was that saying we grant the conditional requirement?
You have not voted on a conditional use permit.
That's what I
yet.
thought.
Correct.
Yeah.
And again, you can either combine it with your condition motion or have it separate.
You want just one motion.
That's however you want to do it. One motion is going to be a long one.
What would Mrs. Powell prefer?
I think you could make a motion for the conditions as agreed to.
I move that we grant the conditional usage permit with the conditions as agreed to and that are in the minutes.
Okay. We have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? One opposed. That means that we have approved the conditional use permit with the conditions as outlined in the minutes of the meeting. I would thank everybody for their time and would we don't have to vote on an issuance of the permit, or do we?
You just did.
Okay,
You just did.
that's enough. Then I would like to entertain a motion to adjourn the hearing, unless there's something else. No.
Second,
All in favor, say aye.
aye.
Thank you very much for your
Sorry, who
time
made the motion?
I did. I said so
and your
moved.
patience.
Linda second.
We have to adjourn.
I move we adjourn the meeting.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Yeah, I know it. You ought to know better. Did, so far, we don't have anything on the agenda for anything upcoming, but hold my breath, right?
Let me stop my recording.
Truthfully, I'd rather do it that way and be fair to everybody and